A stellium is where you have a lot of planets or the luminaries, which is the sun or the moon, in one sign in your chart. So it's kind of like a concentration of energy of that sign in your birth charts. Aloha, everyone, and welcome to the Wild Wahine. This is Kaylani, and this is your new moon in Aquarius astro forecast. We're going to talk a little bit about the new moon in Aquarius that is happening tonight for some of you guys that are already on the mainland. And for us, we're in kind of late afternoon, so it's going to be coming up. I'm going to be doing horoscopes for all of the rising signs. So this might be a slightly longer video, but you will find your horoscope in there that will help you out through this new moon cycle. So I'm really excited about today, actually. I didn't wake up early, though, to see the conjunction between Venus and Jupiter, but we'll talk about that because you can see it again tomorrow morning. I stayed up too late last night, but you can see it in the morning. So I definitely encourage you to go out and see some of these because it's really fun because we talk a lot about this astrology, you know, and we talk about like the aspects and the planets and luminaries and everything. And then it kind of sometimes feels like it's just this thing that's like in the world, you know, that we're talking about that's more metaphysical. But actually, no, you can go outside in the morning, tomorrow morning at sunrise, you know, and if you have any place where you can see the horizon, you can actually see Venus and Jupiter conjunct. And so that's like super cool. So I always encourage everybody to go see it. I saw the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction and that was awesome. So definitely, if you can go outside to see it tomorrow morning and probably the next day too, but I definitely know like tomorrow morning you can go see it. So let's talk a little bit about this new moon in Aquarius. Aquarius energy. Okay, so there's an Aquarius stellium. So you might hear about stelliums. A lot of people have them in their chart. I actually have a big ass stellium in my chart. So a stellium is where you have a lot of planets or the luminaries, which is the sun or the moon, in one sign in your chart. So it's kind of like a concentration of energy of that sign in your birth. If there is a baby, for example, born today, you know, they would have a huge Aquarius stellium, which means the sun, the moon, Mercury, which is retrograde right now, Venus, Jupiter, and Saturn are all in the sign of Aquarius. So all of us are experiencing this energy. We're just experiencing it. There's like a big airplane going by. We're just experiencing it in a different part of our chart, in a different house. So it's going to affect different areas in our life, but we're all experiencing this particular energy. So we all have this Aquarian energy that's happening, you know, kind of focused in one area. So when we talk about Aquarius, I just want to, we've been talking a little bit about it. We're probably going to still talk about it for quite some time because we still have, you know, like Saturn in Aquarius, Jupiter's in Aquarius, going into Pisces, which will be really nice. But, you know, Pluto will be coming, you know, into Aquarius too. So we're just going to be in the Aquarian energy. So just to recap, that Aquarius energy is kind of the disruptor. It's the idealist. It's the rebellious nature. It has to do with humanitarianism and has to do a lot with individuality, but remaining your individual self while caring for the collective. That's something that's very important. And you know, it's an idealist, which can be, you know, kind of, you know, negative and good at the same time. It's great to have these ideals of how things should be, but sometimes it can be idealism to a fault because you're so focused on, you know, the way that it should be, and it should be exactly this way, that you actually are not able to function and kind of sort of move or be mutable, as we would say, because, you know, Aquarius is fixed air, so it kind of gets stubborn and fixated on exactly the way things should be, and it's, you know, has a quality to be very black or white or all or nothing. And we can see that playing out a lot just in general with all of the rebellion that's happening all over the world right now. Everybody kind of wants what they want. They want it for their group or their collective. I mean, there is a lot of people that are saying, even if they're saying like, I want this for my individual self, it's for us, it's for all of us that are this individual. So everybody doesn't really want to talk, you know, about things anymore. It's like they want what they want. They've had enough time, and this is how it is. And it really does have that kind of sort of black or white thinking. So there's not always necessarily like lots of gray when it comes to that. And I think that's where we we need to play in so that we all can survive here in this place. So that's just kind of sort of a little bit of a recap. So even though we have this stellium happening, we also have Venus, which is conjunct Jupiter, which is amazing because those are our two benefic planets. So they're going to bring some yummy, juicy things at this time in a very positive way. Also, like everything else can be in a negative way. We have that, though, Mars squaring all of those planets. So even though we have yummy energy that's hyper fixated in Aquarius, there's still going to be like a little bit of bump, or still going to be like kind of some raw or rough edges there. So just know that, you know, some of us will be experiencing that. And also depending upon whatever house this is in, some of us will be like getting this Aquarian energy in like sensitive places. So it's almost like getting a massage in areas where you typically wouldn't. And you're like, ouch, that hurt. That doesn't feel good. Or you have a knot somewhere and you're like, ouch, it hurts. And you know, you need that massage, but it's like kind of, it's painful because they're like really working on that knot, you know, in your back or whatever. So it's like the pain that you have to go through so that you can like release the muscle and be on the other side of that. So just think about that. If, you know, if when I read the horoscopes, you're just like, it's going to be okay. So, well, actually, one cool thing that I had read was that in terms of this square to Mars right now, the UAE, which is the United Arab Emirates, China, and NASA, all three have rovers right now that are either going to Mars, or that for the US, NASA is on Mars right now, which is so interesting. And it's like collecting stuff. I guess they found like an old riverbed that looks like a delta like the Nile, and they're trying to collect like rocks and other things to see if life has actually been on Mars. So meanwhile, we have all this interesting things that's happening on our planet. We have like, you know, a rover that's on Mars right now collecting stuff, and will be bringing us back all kinds of rocks and potential life if they found any, maybe not like life that's living, but signs of life past. But we're not going to get that until a few years. So that should be really interesting. And I don't know, like of all planets, I feel like Mars, that's like the malefic. It's a malefic planet. You know, I kind of feel like I wish you went to Venus or something. I just feel like anything you bring back from Mars might be a little rough, but we'll see. But I'm excited. You know, I just keep thinking about like The Thing or something, or like some kind of weird sci-fi where like whatever they bring back is not good. So who knows? But anyway, so for Jupiter and Venus, some of the positive things that are going to come out of that, good fortune, money, receiving a gift, receiving a boon. Hey, Nibbles, thanks for joining. I'm just talking about stuff. I haven't got to the horoscopes yet, so that's coming. But as always, just chatting about stuff. Attracting positive things around you. Oh, thanks for all the kisses and hugs. So Venus is all about like love and money and attraction, material things, all the things that feel good, that taste good. Jupiter is about our spirituality, how we kind of see the big picture in things, traveling, about higher education, about making things more expansive and big, things that we have, spreading them out, you know, so there is that level of that. So those are all like wonderful things that can happen, you know, in terms of the positive of getting more love and more money and more just good feelings and more harmony and more peace is a beautiful thing. On the negative side, you know, sometimes both of those planets can be incredibly indulgent in all of the good things too. So sometimes if you have something bad, you don't want that to spread. Like if you're having some sort of rash or breakout, you know, you don't want that Jupiter transit to come in and it's like all over your body, right? So there's this quality of like indulgence, or having too much, or not having self-control, or not being able to, you know, say no, not having really healthy boundaries, too much of things, too much emotion, too much love, too much, you know, too much of all of it, too much of anything is probably not going to be good. So you want to keep yourself in balance with that, or just think about that as we're kind of going through all of our horoscopes. So we're going to switch into that right now. Let's see. I think that was it. Yeah. So just one more thing about the new moon. The new moon that's happening in Aquarius right now, it will be, we will have 2 full moons in Aquarius that are going to be happening. Yes, slow down on the online shopping. That wasn't just for you. That was for everyone. I need to tell my mom that. I told you about QVC, my mom and QVC. That is like so Jupiterian, but that's another story. So my mom's going to get me if she sees this video. But the full moon in Aquarius is going to be happening July 23rd and also August 22nd. So we're going to have 2 full moons in Aquarius that I believe are going to tie to this one. So know that we'll have like 2 more times to revisit this kind of energy. It's going to be different. It's not going to be that big Aquarius stellium, but we will have another one. And we are going to see that signature between Venus and Jupiter. So the energy, some of the things that we're feeling now and that we're going to be feeling with this cycle, we're going to be revisiting, and we're going to see a lot of that this year. A lot of like, this is what's happening now, but we're revisiting it again, and we're revisiting it again. So I feel like if you don't get things perfect or don't have everything the way that you wanted it, you will have a lot of time this year to kind of revisit things and to make them better and to tweak them and to learn again if you didn't get the lesson the first time. So that's kind of a nicer, I think last year really felt like this is it. Like if you didn't get it, too bad. Like if you're not on the train, we're not coming back. Where I feel like, this year is like, hop on the train. Oh, you missed it. Well, you can catch it at the next stop. Okay, well, you can catch it at the next stop. So that's kind of like a better feeling with that. Hey, Genevieve, thanks for joining. So we're going to jump into our horoscopes now because we got 12 of them. So we're going to start with Aries rising. So Aries rising. So this stellium, this big Aquarian energy is hitting you in your 11th house. So the 11th house has to do with friends. It has to do with like networking. It has to do with groups. It has to do with like dreams. It's your house of like hopes and wishes and all of those things. So there's going to be a lot of focus on like your groups or your friends or networking or your dreams or things that you want to manifest. So you might have some really good things happening for you in terms of manifesting some of those things. The challenge is going to be with that square in Mars. That's going to be in your 2nd house of finances, material wealth, your assets and all of that. So it's all of the money. Oh, thank you. It's all of the money and all of the things that you would need in order to make your wishes come true or to grow your network, so to speak. Like if you wanted to launch a business or something and you want to really get it out to the masses. So like the investment that you would need to put into that, or can you invest to put into that, or how people and your network or your groups might be somehow like leeching or taking from those investments. So it really has to do with those 2 energies and what's going to happen with that. So for Taurus rising, and these I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but these are all for your rising signs, not for your sun signs. Remember, when you read horoscopes, you should always read them from your rising sign first. That's like the most important thing. Some people do read them from their sun signs, but they're way more accurate from rising. And that's what I do anyway as a whole sign house Hellenistic astrologer. So anyway, back to Taurus rising. So Taurus rising, this is hitting you in your 10th house. So this is your house of career. This is your house of like how people see you and how you're visibly seen in the world, your status, your social status. So this is going to be really good, all that Aquarian energy for people who want to like, potentially get another job, get a raise or something like that, or somehow like, get more accomplishments at work, or being seen for what you do, or being visibly seen for what you're doing. Like if you're in a business or something and someone wants you to be the face of it or the head of it, or for you to take more responsibility for it, you're going to kind of sort of see that. So that's going to be interesting. It's going to be squaring now, though, your 1st house. And your 1st house is your house of self, of how you identify yourself, also your physicality, your appearance, and how you look. So there might be some issues in terms of you feeling like, do I have physically everything that I need in order to be the face of this thing or the face of this product? There's sometimes people who want to launch something, especially if they're doing it online, but they have a lot of questions as to like, am I thin enough? Am I pretty enough? Am I this enough? Am I that? Do I have this? Do I have all of the things that I need in order to step up into this role? So you're going to be kind of thinking about that and potentially struggling with that and thinking about like, how can I feel good about who I am and what I have so I can step up and really like either present this thing or hold this space for like myself in the business sense or in like the visible world. So that will be happening for that. So next up, Geminis, Gemini rising. So Geminis, you guys are ruled by Mercury, which is retrograde anyway. So I'm like already feeling for you, but here we go with more energy, right? So that's going to be focused more on your 9th house. Your 9th house is the house of, they say, of spirituality. It's the house of like spiritual awakening, about kind of being connected to things that are larger than yourself. It's the higher mind. It has to do with higher education and long-term trips, or planning long-term trips, or other things that have to do in a more expansive nature. So if you were thinking about, getting deeper within yourself in terms of how you feel about spirituality or your connectedness to things that have to do with like grounding yourself in the spirit, in spirituality, which is interesting, I think, because people, Gemini risings, a lot of times, it's like you flit and flutter. It's like a very butterfly kind of energy going this place and that place, back and forth. So this is kind of like saying, like, you have this concentration of houses in this space that's saying it's actually time to like take on this bigger project or to do something with a larger sense or a larger meaning. That's going to be squaring Mars in the 12th house. And a 12th house is a house of loss and sickness and some like negative people. It also is known for the house of enemies. So it's this relationship between it also has to do with seclusion or potential being kept in a place away from people. So there's like lots of things that has to do with, it could be mental health hospitals, it could be jail and other things like that. I'm not saying that that's where you're going to be, but it could be, you could be jailed in your mind. You could be mentally, stuck in your mind. It doesn't necessarily have to be like a physical space. So what are the things that are keeping you back from achieving the spirituality that you want and how you want to see yourself and the new things you want to bring in your life? Especially if you have like really negative patterns, you're really trying to break out of that and you're like, okay, I want to turn over a new leaf because the new moon is all about new things, but I have these things that are keeping me physically back or even emotionally back from doing that. That's going to be like the things that you're thinking about and dealing with as you are waking into your spirituality or to the thing that kind of connects you to something larger. So for Cancer risings, this is going to be hitting you in your 8th house. So your 8th house has a lot to do with money. The 2nd and the 8th house is money. So money that has to do with like debts and loans and things that need to be repaid. Money that is going out or money that is shared money. So it could be money in your group or money with, your husband and wife, like your finances that you have with everyone else. It could have to do with like family money and all those kinds of things. It also is the house of death and rebirths, how you destroy yourself and rebuild yourself, or how things can destroy you and rebuild you. So there is this exchange of energy there, right? Whenever you're dealing with money, there's an exchange, and whenever you're dealing with like kind of things in your life which feel like they break you down and build you back up. So that's where it's going to be focused. So that's going to be some heavy energy for you. It's going to be squaring your 11th house of friendships, groups, and networking. So we're going to see some interesting kind of potential boundaries put up maybe from your friend or your peer group or your networking group. There's a possibility that, things that have to do with financial things and large groups of people. So it could be like investments. It can be like some sort of like financial group that you're a part of. You're going to kind of sort of see that. And some of the challenge might be coming from those groups in terms of how you feel about yourself. Again, it could be with your money, but again, it could be with yourself too. And there's a deeply spiritual sense also to the 8th house. So if you have people in your life that are just not healthy people and you feel like you really are not being who you should spiritually be or who you really want to be, it can deeply affect that too. So we have those kind of energies that are happening. So, just be on the lookout for what's going on with your friend and networking group and how that's relating to potential money issues or potential like rebirth issues or things that you really want to give birth to in your life or things that you fundamentally need to change. Are the people in your life supporting that, or are they kind of holding you back? Do you need to kind of sort of rebirth a new friend group? It's a different thought too. Leo risings. So this is going to be in your 7th house, this big fat Aquarius stellium for the Leo rising. So this is relationships. Relationships, partnerships, business, all of that stuff. A lot of times has to do with family. It has to do with, 7th house is the other. So it's always about the partner, the person who you are partnering up with in your business life. Yes, here, person who's partnering up with your business life, person who you're partnering up in your love life. And it has to do also too, there's things that have to do with social justice issues. So we can see like on a larger scale, like what that has to do with the fairness of that. So a lot of that energy is going to be surrounding your relationships. It is squaring, Mars is in the 10th house where that square is. So that's interesting because 10th house, again, as we mentioned before, has to do with your status and has to do with work and what you're doing. And so there's this interesting relationship between the relationship and work and what that means and whether there's boundaries that need to happen, whether you're working together with your partner, but there definitely is this interesting dynamic between like how much time am I spending working and building and like putting myself in the place where I want to be, because again, 10th house is status. It's at the top of your chart. It's like how you work in the world, how people see you, what you want to do. It's like how you aspire to be in your job or in your career, or kind of sort of life purpose, and what that means in terms of your relationship. Is your relationship supporting that? Is it not supporting that? Do you feel like you're like, going back and forth between your relationship and what you want to do in your life and what that means? So it's like trying to figure out like what that means, and that's where you're going to kind of sort of be having that energy, trying to figure out, okay, what's mine? How can I still hold my status, but also how can I be in this partnership? It also could be, if it's not a love relationship, it could also be like you starting your own thing, but maybe you're in a partnership with someone else and you're really thinking about like doing your own thing and what that means, and is what you're doing somehow getting in the way of your partnership with someone else in that job sense or in that relationship sense or whatever it is. So that's kind of going to be the energy there. So we are going on to Virgo rising. So Virgo risings, this is hitting you in your 6th house. So your 6th house has to do with health and wellness and taking care of yourself, animals, how it's sickness, like how you're taking care of your body, essentially, how you're taking care of the things in your life that are going to feed you and feed your soul. And also like the kind of like mundane things in life, the everyday things in life, like cleaning your house or like side hustle jobs and things like that. So that's going to be squaring your 9th house. 9th house, the house of spirituality. That's where Mars is going to be. So the challenge will be, or the thing that's going to be interesting is going to be about like how you're taking like the mundane things in life or the everyday things in life that you've been doing and wanting to kind of sort of up level them, so to speak, in a maybe a spiritual way. Like, so if you're the type of person that like goes out and jogs every day, you might say, well, I want to do yoga, or I want to do some mantra, I want to add something. Oh, thank you, Jen. Thank you. I'm so glad you love them. So I might want to up level. Might want to like do something fun or do something interesting. And just something that actually is a little bit more connected, something that's more meaningful. Like, I just don't want to do like the Karate Kid, like wash on, wash off, like that kind of like monotonous way of doing things isn't really exactly what you want to do. So you might find some interesting new ways of doing things. It might be like starting a new diet or adding more vegetables or like getting into herbalism or something that has like, because remember that that 9th house is all about like old, kind of old spirituality and old healing. So it could be, again, about like herbalism or changing your diet or doing kind of adding a spiritual practice into the mundane things that you're doing, just so it can uplift you and kind of support you in those things. So finding alternative ways of healing if you've been dealing with chronic illness, because sometimes that like lives in the 6th house. So you might be looking for an alternative way of healing yourself if the normal way of doing it wasn't working. So it's really about kind of like going outside of yourself and looking at things and kind of feeling better. And being more empowered in that sense. So we have the 7th, we have Libra rising. Libra rising, so this Libra rising is happening in your 5th house of pleasure, of creativity, of children, of risk-taking, of creativity, and all things that have to do with love and romance. So you're gonna see like a heightened focus on that area of your life. Where that's going to be squaring is the 8th house of secrets, the 8th house of money and debt and things like that. So it could be about, you wanting to be more creative and having the creative things in your life, but you having debts or financial obligations or things that have to do with like your kids or whatever, that's not allowing you to do the things that you want. So how can you clean up the finances and what you owe so it can be supportive of you maybe growing your household, because that is a lot of 5th house stuff. It could be adding children into your household. It could be like asking someone to marry you and take it to the next level, but maybe you want to do that and you want to go there and do those beautiful things, like, take that new course or like go back to school for some kind of creative thing or take a class, but you're like looking at your finances and you're just like, I owe so much and I have this debt and my APRs are like this, and it's kind of like that's going to be the thing that feels like it's getting in the way of you kind of going off and leading the luxurious life that you want, because all those 5th house things feel really good. Typically, I mean, kids can be really rough, but like love and creativity and all of that. So that's going to be the thing, like, and figuring out like, how can I handle the finances, especially when it's debts owed, or how can I handle even the secret things within myself, like me not being comfortable or confident, like how can I handle those things, so that I can actually go out and like really enjoy the things in my life. Because 5th house stuff is like very much about enjoyment and luxury and really like what it means to be human and living like in a full way. So we have Scorpio rising next. So Scorpio rising, so that's hitting us in the fourth house. Fourth house stuff is home and family. Has to do a lot of times with moving, the physical house, all of the things that have to do with like mom and dad, and potentially like renovating the home, taking care of your family, taking care of your parents, have your parents' influence in your life and things like that. So that's where that focus is going to be, where the stellium is going to be. The Mars square is going to be in your seventh house of relationships and partner and family, and all of that. So you might see that there is a little bit of a challenge between what's happening with your family, potentially your immediate family, and your partnerships, whether that be partnerships at work, whether that be the partner that you have in your life, your love relationship partner, and what that means for work, and how that has to do with possibly a move, or possibly moving, or moving out of someone's house, or moving in with someone and like starting a family and then taking on their family, like blended families. Or what are you going to do with your family, moving into your parents' house, moving out of your parents' house, like all of those kinds of, having your parents come live with you, there's all kinds of things that are happening. And so you're going to kind of see the energy there with a lot of family things and relationships, especially. That's going to be like a biggie. Okay. Sagittarius rising. So that is in your third house. Your third house of siblings and school and communication and education and all of that. And the environment that surrounds you, your immediate environment, your backyard, your neighborhood, just the city that you live in. That is going to be squaring Mars, Mars squaring that in the sixth house of how you take care of yourself, how you take care of your environment, how you take care potentially of your siblings, or take care of people that are around you. So you're definitely going to be seeing like some focus on like your community, like your immediate community in terms of like siblings and your immediate community, or even how you communicate and say what you want. Are you saying, are you doing that? Are you being healthy? Sixth house stuff a lot of times has to do with health and physical health, but it also can do with mental health as well. So are you communicating in a way that is supportive of what you want? Like, are you making good choices for yourself and really stating your boundaries and how you want things to work out in your life? Because if you're not, then that's going to put you in situations that will be tough for you and rough for you in the long run. So so a lot of it also could be something really as specific as just like learning a new language, or having a language barrier, like what you're saying is not being heard, so you're not able to communicate those things, or potentially having speech issues where you're saying things or someone's saying something and you don't understand what they're saying, and that's kind of challenging the way that you communicate, and how you communicate essentially expresses who you are and what you want and what you don't want. And it's kind of hard to kind of get to that next level if you're not able to communicate, even on the very physical level of communication, and even if it means that like emotionally things are happening, so therefore you can't communicate. Next up we have is Capricorn rising. We're almost there, guys. We are almost there. So Capricorn rising, that's going to be hitting you in your second house. So second house of finance, money, wealth, material things in life, prosperity, abundance. So it's going to be kind of nice, I think, having all this energy of having that Venus, Jupiter right there in the second house. Definitely, I think, means like you're going to be coming into some money, or at least kind of like extending the money that you have, or capitalizing off the money that you have. The challenge is going to be what happens in your fifth house, the fifth house of children and creativity, which could just be everything that's taking away the money. So it's like you have something, but it's like the hole that's burning in your pocket where it's all falling out because you have like fifth house things in Mars that is kind of challenging that. So how is the family, or the extended, with your children or your creative endeavors, or even just the kind of like things that you like to do, the fun things, is that kind of burning a hole in your, like, were you trying to save to get like for something really like a nicer house or renovations, but you like spent it on things that are fun, like, but they're like not really what you want to do. So like if you have this goal, or you want to save up the money and all of that, you're going to want to like tend to those things that are either creative, or the children, or potentially just all of the fun, juicy things in life that might be kind of like challenging the stability that you feel like you want to have financially. So that's where we're going to see that kind of leach out a bit. So with Aquarius rising, so everything, right? All these planets are in Aquarius, and now we're with people with Aquarius rising. So you're going to be feeling this big time, because that, the sun is in Aquarius, all these planets are in Aquarius, and you have an Aquarius rising. So this essentially means being it in your first house, which is the house of self, just who you are, how you define yourself, your whole sense of existence. It's an existential, playing field for Aquarius risings right now, like just in questioning like who you are, or coming into who you are also, like really feeling like, okay, this is who I am. I'm going to embrace this. Like, I am not going to let anyone tell me who I am or how. And we have this square, this challenge coming from the fourth house, which is like family, and home and parents and all of the kind of traditional things, or the traditions of where you come from and where you like how you would associate yourself, like I'm from the South, or I'm from Hawaii, or I'm from like whatever group you're in, and how they think you should be. And then you're like all Aquarian and weird, and you're just like, no, but this is how I am. And so that kind of sort of issue of you wanting to just break out and be your own individual self, screw everybody, but then this like core group to you kind of still telling you what to do and how to do things. And that can be the challenge. But overall, it's really going to be like, I'm coming out, I want the world to know. It's like I'm this is who I am. So that's going to be interesting as you kind of sort of feel into all of those things of who you are. So last but definitely not least is Capricorn rising. And it's been challenging, right? I mean, like it's this year it's been a little challenging. All those, it has been. So, interesting thing, Saturn's there, right? Saturn likes to be in the 12th house. So, I mean, it does good work. It takes a long time, but it comes. But again, it's like the place of the house of undoing, the house of kind of disillusion of self and who you are. A lot of restriction. A lot of times it's a place of escape and withdrawal. Now, I want to challenge, are you withdrawing for a reason that you need to? Is there some big fundamental change? Because if it is the house of the undoing, like you're undoing the self undoing, you're undoing yourself, you're taking out the stuff that doesn't work. Like that's messy work, right? To quote unquote fix yourself. We never really fix ourselves, but to improve ourselves and to make ourselves better, to be better people, to kind of get over our vices, that's work. It doesn't necessarily feel good. So this is kind of sort of what's happening in this 12th house. Like, what are the things that are holding you back? And that is like hitting you right there in the third house. It's third house stuff. It's siblings. It can be communication. It can be school. It can be all of the things, those kind of sort of mercurial things that are like all over the place. The mind, third house is deeply associated with. So where in your mind are you being held back? Where do you think that you can't move forward and do the things that you want to do, or that you feel that you should be doing to get to the place where you are? And so sometimes it does take a little bit of a withdrawal to kind of deal with those things, because they're deeply, deeply, deeply embedded into the psyche, almost like, for example, at the DNA level. Like sometimes it takes a little withdrawal to get to that, and then you can come, out and play. So that's gonna be kind of like that energy of that. And so remember, it's new moon, new cycle, new opportunities every single month to get some new things done and have some new energy, and breathe some fresh air and kind of work with the energy to get to where you need to go. Let me see if there's anything else with that. So yeah, so I think that this is going to be looking like a lot of self-love and a lot of self-reflection and a lot of like snippity snip of the people, especially the people, and the words that you say that don't work, like negative self-talk. It's going to be a lot of snip with that. So anyway, there you go. Those are all your horoscopes for the new moon in Aquarius. You guys have a great time. We have some really other auspicious days coming up. If you watch my video from Monday, which gave kind of the week video, we have Mercury conjunct Venus and also Mercury conjunct Jupiter, which I think you're going to feel really good. Valentine's Day is coming up. My son's birthday's, later this weekend. So it's all kinds of yumminess that's happening, kind of sort of into the weekend. Just make sure that we're not kind of overindulging on things. And if you guys have any questions or anything like that, you can leave them in the comments. If you want to book a reading, I will be running a special actually around kind of like the Valentine's Day-ish type off probably my water reading, because that's the one that most people book for love reading. So if you have any questions about that and would like to have a tarot reading and like mini astrology reading, I think I'm gonna put a little something together for that day. But you can find all of that stuff on www.thewildwahine.as.me. You can find me on YouTube. Make sure you like this video and share it or tag somebody if you want, because that just always helps. And you can find me on Facebook and Twitter. And thank you guys for joining so much. I will see you later. Aloha and have a wonderful, wonderful day.